Joining me now, Jeff Mason, White House correspondent for Reuters, and Ankush Khadori, former federal prosecutor, now Politico magazine senior writer. And Jeff, let's talk about the firing of the BLS director. Administration officials are defending that today, as you heard there. Did all of Trump's economic team agree with this decision?
I don't have an answer to that, but they're certainly out defending it. I think it's fair to say that often President Trump's staff and top advisors have to come out and give a defense for issues or for decisions that the president makes on the economy and on other issues that they may not be 100% behind. Now, I'm wary of making a broad statement like that, but I'll give you one example. Certainly the president's criticism of the Federal Reserve Chief, Jerome Powell, has not been something that has been largely supported by Treasury Secretary Bessent. So I don't know the answer to your question in terms of whether or not they supported this firing, but it's certainly something that President Trump did and is in line with how he handles bad news, both economic and otherwise. When he sees something that he doesn't like, he is happy to act, and in this case, act by firing this person. And as Kevin Hassett was just explaining in the clip that you played, finding someone from within his own orbit to replace her.
And we also know he doesn't like being investigated. So, Jeff, now that Jack Smith is under investigation, what are you hearing about that? Is it one of the Epstein distraction methods that you've been writing about?
I have been writing about that, and the story that I wrote most recently about that basically said that President Trump's toolbox as a public figure, both before he was president and now that he's in office for the second time, has been quite effective at getting people to look elsewhere, to deny, to change the subject, but it just hasn't worked with the Epstein story. And that is largely because the drive for more information about Epstein and about those so-called files has come from his own base and the MAGA base and his MAGA supporters. So yes, is this another attempt to distract from that? Absolutely. Is it working? Not so far. That doesn't mean that it's not going to get some attention, but the Epstein story is not going away, and he has not quelled it by forcing or encouraging people to look elsewhere.
Ankush, former CIA Director John Brennan, an MSNBC contributor, and former FBI Director James Comey, who previously investigated Trump, are also under investigation. Both have denied wrongdoing. Has this show of force had any success in slowing down the criticism? Just respond there to what you heard. There's been criticism over Epstein. There's been criticism over the big, beautiful bill and the economy. Is this working to go after Trump's adversaries?
You know, that's not clear to me. I think it's hard to say. I mean, on the merits, I don't think it should work because these are very well-tread ground. I mean, they're still now, talking about going back and investigating or dredging facts up from the 2016 election and the Trump-Russia investigation. The FBI director has been out touting these things, and they're very marginal. The likelihood that they end up in a meaningful result or a meaningful sanction against these people that is credible with the public, I think it's fairly low. And I don't really get the sense that people are prepared to move on from Epstein. At least his core supporters have sort of latched onto this. And look, it may blow over eventually. And in fact, it probably will blow over eventually as sort of time goes on. But I don't think we're there yet.
Why is he struggling, Ankush, to kind of control this narrative, as we've seen him try to do in the past more successfully?
I think for a couple of reasons. One is, honestly, the statements that he and his administration have been making in recent months. Now, the Wall Street Journal reported that in May, he was briefed by the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General that his name was in the Epstein documents. Ever since that happened, we've seen a whole series of evasions and deflections and non sequiturs and efforts to blame Democrats and the media, and I think that has just been fallen all flat. And then second, you have these two lines of inquiry, public-facing lines of inquiry that they've initiated. One, this effort to unseal grand jury transcripts, which I think we now effectively know will not produce much, if anything, new based on the witnesses that testified in that grand jury. And two, this effort to develop Ghіઝlаіnе Mахwеll as a cooperator. And I think most, normal people realize that that is a very bad idea out of the gate. I saw a poll this week, in fact, that reported that among the public, only 4% of people supported the idea of pardoning Mахwell.
Jeff, President Trump attacked talk show host Charlemagne the God after he appeared on his daughter-in-law's Fox News program. Here's some of what he said.
I think there's a political coup going on right now in the Republican Party that people aren't paying attention to.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I think that this Epstein thing is going to be a way for traditional conservatives to take their party back. This is the issue that has gotten the base riled up. The MAGA base isn't letting this issue go, and for the first time, they know they can, probably take their party back and not piss off the MAGA base. I think they're going to do that.
Awkward. So does he have a point there? Do you think that's what's happening?
I think it's way too early to draw that conclusion, but I think that it's not a message or an idea or a thesis that President Trump is happy to hear, and certainly not on Fox News on his daughter-in-law's program. And I think that's probably what drove the criticism that he directed back at Charlemagne. And again, this is in line with what we were saying earlier. President Trump is not someone who likes to be criticized. He feels that there should be focus on his accomplishments. And listen, whether you agree or disagree with President Trump's policies, he has a lot of accomplishments for sure. But he also has a lot of things that are hanging around his neck politically. And Charlemagne went into a few of them. In addition to the one that you just played with regard to Epstein, he also talked about the economy and some other issues that may hurt support for President Trump in the midterms and for the Republican Party going forward. So is there an opportunity for conservatives to take back the party? And when I say conservatives, I mean the more traditional conservatives that he's referring to. Maybe, but we're just a few weeks into this. It's pretty early to say for sure that that's what's going to happen.
Ankush, your thoughts on that?
No, I totally agree with Jeff's assessment that it's too early to tell. And in fact, the Epstein issue has attracted a lot of attention. I think one reason it's staying in the news is because these lines of inquiry they've initiated are not developing, and in fact developing more negative news stories over time. But Trump has a long history.
Look, with Ms. Maxwell, she was not eligible at this moment for any type of transfer. The fact that she's moved to this new prison just within this week of meeting with Todd Blanche, who, as we know, is not just the deputy AG, but was Donald Trump's former personal lawyer, his personal attorney, should be very concerning.
California Congressman Robert Garcia adding to the number of lawmakers demanding an explanation as to why Epstein accomplice Ghіઝlаіnе Mахwell was moved to a minimum security prison camp in Texas. The decision immediately sparked backlash from the victims, including the family of Virginia Giuffre, who said that the move smacks of a cover-up. The victims deserve better. Joining me now is Walt Pavlo, the CEO of Prisonology and a network firm of retired Bureau of Prisons professionals. And let's just start with the fact that were you surprised by the move in and of itself and also the speed of it?
Yes, I was. It was, it's really unprecedented. When the Bureau of Prisons is looking at placing an inmate in custody, they look at the security classification. And when they're doing that, they're saying, what's the best level for this person to be at? And Ms. Maxwell would have probably been like camp eligible as far as most of her security profile, with the exception that she was convicted of a sex crime, a human trafficking crime. And that requires the application of a public safety factor, which means that she's camp ineligible and she would have to be held at a low. And in the 11 years that we've been doing this, we've never seen a public safety factor for sex offender waived for anyone. And we've tried in some cases.
So what do you make of the fact that a senior official has denied Maxwell has been receiving preferential treatment? But what do you make of the fact that a convicted sex offender has now been moved to what could be considered a more cush prison, if there is such a thing? What do you make of the timing of all of it as well?
Well, there's no coincidence on the timing. Obviously, there's a meeting with very high-level people at the Department of Justice, and then very soon after that, she's moved to a camp. The usual procedure to even try to do this could take several months just to get permission. But there's another complicating factor with like Ms. Maxwell. First of all, she was a fugitive when she first started. They were seeking her, and then when she was finally caught, they, didn't allow her to be out on bond. And, because she had significant resources, she had multiple passports. There were a lot of other security reasons that they looked at. So the speed at which this happened is pretty remarkable, just the move itself. One other factor I will say is just how quickly she moved from one prison to another. A typical inmate is moved through, many hubs and different spots along the way. And it could take anywhere from, believe it or not, 2 weeks to 2 months to get to the next location. I mean, she pretty much went on a one-way jet ride between prisons. So, all of that in itself is unprecedented.
Well, give us a sense, for those of us who aren't familiar, about the difference between the Florida facility that she was being housed in and what she may encounter in Texas.
I think the camp is just going to be a little bit, if for lack of a better term, a better quality of inmate. There's going to be, more minimum security, first-time, non-violent offenders that are going to be in there versus a low, which is going to have people who have very long sentences, maybe have other violent crimes. Conditions aren't going to be that much different other than, there's now going to be not much of a perimeter fence.
Trump screwed himself here. It is really funny, actually. Because what happened is that he allowed Maxwell to put him over a barrel and absolutely imperil him. And it's all his fault and all of his top cronies' fault because they made the Epstein story a big story. I'm not saying it wasn't important before, but, he is gone. I don't think he took his own life. I actually think, I don't care if it's a conspiracy theory, I do think he was taken out by rich and powerful people to silence him. But, he's gone. Maxwell's locked up for a long time. They're apparently the only two people involved, wink, wink. And, the story would have relatively gone away. But then Trump was like, no, this is a big thing. And if I win, I'm going to release it all. And even after the election, he kept talking about it. Normally, when a politician doesn't mean what they say during an election, is that after they win, they sort of forget about it, and then you realize that they actually never meant it. But he was talking about it weeks ago. They had the whole thing with the binders, right? And then all of a sudden, once it became clear at about May, April-ish, that Trump was actually in the list, in the files, then they stopped wanting to release it. And then Maxwell, sort of seizing her opportunity, was basically like, I'm willing to talk to people. And then Trump's lawyers, his personal lawyers who turned government lawyers, met with her. And then all of a sudden, she's in a fancier jail now. A jail where, mostly white collar types got arrested that, didn't do anything, I think, as severe as what she did, right? And without years in prison to deserve this good behavior reward or whatnot. And so all of this, Maxwell seizing her opportunity to improve her conditions, and what people are saying is this is the first step to a pardon. The lawyers for Epstein and Maxwell's victims have said they think this is the soft walking the pardon, testing the waters for a pardon. But that means that Donald has kind of put himself in the crosshair because this is infuriating people. And what's really interesting is he keeps on trying to drop pieces of red meat for his base, being like, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that. And then on Twitter and stuff and on right-wing social media, they're like, oh, okay, thanks, Donald. Hey, by the way, where's the list? They are not giving up on this. And the Maxwell pardon, that's pissing him off.